Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today. I know as students you've got a ton on your plate of all times. If it's clubs, schoolwork, studying for tests, building relationships, you've got so much going on, but you are taking the time to be today. And I really hope we make it worth your while. I think it's going to be worth your while. So buckle in because we are here to talk about enterprise computing. Quick kind of aside as we get started here, you're going to see a few different terms as we go through this presentation. Enterprise computing, that refers to like the suite of high-powered computers that are used by the world's businesses to run their mission-critical applications. IBM Z, that's the business unit within IBM that creates these machines. Mainframes are what we kind of colloquially refer to as the machines themselves. A mainframe is a tall box. It's about me-sized, a little bigger. It's like me-sized during bulking season, so like a little wider too. And these machines power every single thing that we do. But we're going to get into that in a minute. I am Sahn. I am a skills leader in North America, focused all around IBM Z and Linux One technologies. Linux One, to bring that one into the picture, we're going to talk a little bit more about those machines later on. But in short, it's an IBM Z machine, a mainframe that runs Linux. So anything that you can do in a Linux environment, you can run that on these machines. So it kind of widens the scope of what our clients, the end users, are able to do with this tech stack. Before we get started, has anyone here ever heard of a mainframe before? Heard of IBM Z? No? Okay. Well, that's good because that means I get to teach you something new, and that is one of my favorite things to do. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but here we go. Let's get into it. But before we dive in, let's talk about what happens in 1 second on the internet. I mean, we're always inundated. We're on our phones. We're always online. It seems like nowadays you can't really avoid it. There's a ton of data moving through the interwebs and whatnot. But let's take a look at what that data is. So in 1 second, we see 1,200 posts on Instagram. We see 10,000 tweets on Twitter. I'm going to change the logo on my slide. I'm not going to call it X. I refuse. 10,000 tweets on Twitter. 98,000 videos uploaded to YouTube. 106,000 searches on Google. And these are mostly me searching like what happens in 1 second on the internet. And while that all seems like a ton of data moving through our machines at every given second, it pales in comparison to the nearly 1.2 million IBM Z transactions occurring each and every second. It's truly a staggering amount of data moving through these machines all around the world. Now let's take a look at what those transactions are. They are the transactions powering the world's leading businesses. So we think of 7 of the top 10 largest global retailers, 90% of the biggest banks in the world, 90% of the biggest airlines in the world, and 80% of the biggest insurance agents in the world are all powered by these IBM Z machines. So what that means for you is that each time you swipe your credit card, pull cash out of an ATM, book a flight, file an insurance claim, you are interacting with a mainframe somewhere. So while very few of you, or maybe none of you, had ever heard of a mainframe before, in actuality, you're interacting with these systems more often than not multiple times a day. So let's get into what is a mainframe. This like tagline down there, IT's best kept secret, isn't just a tagline there. It truly is IT's best kept secret. I mean, we just saw how many of the world's largest businesses are powered by these machines, but we don't know what they are. We don't know about them. They're all working in the background. They're kept secret, but I'm here to kind of spill that secret out to you, and hopefully you can spread the secret around, and maybe you'll even have a career in mainframe, kind of hopefully not keeping the secret to yourself, but kind of interacting with these machines and working on it. So let's talk about what these transactions are. I mean, we've talked about the nearly 1.2 million transactions occurring each and every second, but let's walk through what a transaction is on the mainframe. So we see down here, you, the user, way down the bottom left of the screen, are the point of sale. You're on your device, your phone, your computer, your laptop, whatever. You are looking for a new pair of shoes. You press buy. That transaction goes through a cloud provider network. This is like your public cloud. Think like your AWS, your Microsoft Azure, your IBM Cloud, Google Cloud. And through a series of edge services and cloud applications, it links ultimately to an enterprise network. More often than not, an IBM Z machine somewhere housed at maybe it's your bank or with the retailer itself. Or maybe it goes to a mainframe at the retailer and a mainframe at the bank. And what that mainframe is doing in this instance is it's making sure you are who you say you are. So there's no funny business going on, no fraud happening, and that you have the funds required to make this purchase. Once it clears that, it gives you the double thumbs up, bounces back out to you, the user, and you see purchase confirmed. Now you're buying something on Amazon. Let's say you have a really good connection. You got that 5G on your phone. How often does this transaction take? Like a matter of milliseconds, right? And that is because it has to take a matter of milliseconds. When you're buying something online, you want it now. Our attention spans are only getting shorter. I mean, I'm starting to watch my TikTok's on 2x speed now because I just want to know what happens, and that's probably bad. It's probably like killing something in my mind there, but it's the matter of things. You want something now, so you should get it now. And with the latest and greatest mainframes, the IBM Z16, which we're going to dive into in a bit here, it's happening faster and faster. And I don't want to move on to the next slide without kind of commenting on that underpinning there, that pink circle down there. That's all about security. These machines are the most secure systems on the planet. In a few slides, we're going to talk about some of the latest and greatest innovations on the platform that keep us at that top level security mark. But again, just like with these transactions happening as quickly as possible, security is top of mind because it has to be. This is your bank data, your social security number. This information has to remain secure. We've got to try to limit all instances in which bad actors may try to get this data. So we do. It's encrypted at every stage along. It's got encryption as it's moving between different machines to make sure that your data is safe. And as I mentioned, we're going to dive into that security a little bit later on. But before we do so, let's talk about some of the different areas in which you can work in the mainframe career. It's not all just kind of plugging away, kind of administering systems. That may be a big part of your role, but it's not going to be your whole thing. For instance, let's start with hybrid cloud. Who knows what hybrid cloud is? Who's got a definition for me? Exactly. So it's your partnership essentially between a public cloud service, again, like your AWS, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, usually a more cost-effective solution that trades off costs for maybe security features or just accessibility in general, with a more secure, private, generally more expensive option like your IBM Z. Companies can maximize their efficiency, maximize each dollar spent by kind of partnering these two systems together. Everything that you do as a business doesn't need to be run on the mainframe, and it shouldn't just be run on the public cloud, especially if you're handling sensitive private information. In the world of analytics and artificial intelligence, I mean, AI is everywhere now. It's exploding in this space as well. In just a few slides, we're going to really dive into AI on the platform, so get ready for that. But when it comes to AI, we all know that good AI needs good data. And when you have this much data, when you have 1.2 million transactions per day, you can create good AI. You can create good models in data analytics to base the future of your business on. When it comes to IoT, that's Internet of Things. That's essentially another source for gathering data and pulling them in alongside the data that these machines are already collecting, and you could tell a bigger story because of it. So especially in the insurance industry, which we talked about, a big portion of those companies are leveraging IBM-Z technology. They are spending a ton of money in IoT technology, and that's just more data that's getting pulled into their mainframe data pools so that they can do so much more with it. So it's really exciting stuff there. But outside of just the technology areas, I want to talk about the open source software ecosystem that revolves around the IBM-Z and Linux One technology. So if you do a little research into this technology space, you're going to see stuff like COBOL and JCL, REX, TSO, ISPF. I can name acronyms all day, but I'm not going to. Well, those are important technologies to understand and be aware of as you kind of dive into this technology field. And we've got some great resources coming up to help you learn these tools, learn these skills and languages and runtimes and whatnot. You certainly do not need to throw out everything that you already know. When it comes to languages and runtimes that you might be learning right here at school, like Python and Java and Go and Node.js, JavaScript, these are all technologies that you can pull into a career in mainframe. When you want to think of mainframe, always think of it as an and, not an or. Everything you do can be done with mainframe, something and mainframe. It's not something or mainframe. Mainframe is increasingly so interconnected into what the rest of the technology sphere is doing. So if you're working in databases like MongoDB or MySQL, take those skills and you can apply them in a career in mainframe. If you use big data tools like Splunk, Spark, Kafka, Apache, pull those technology skills that you've earned and that you've learned into your career in mainframe. Learn that COBOL, that JCL. That's a breeze. It's always easier to learn something new when you've got that foundation. But then again, if this is the first time you're seeing a lot of the technologies here, you can start learning mainframe and you can learn these on the job, on the go. Because it's important to remember, it's always an and. Everything that you learn can be pulled into a future career in mainframe. One more thing I want to highlight before we kind of dive into AI on the platform is that this is responsible computing, especially compared to kind of the traditional x86 blade infrastructure that so much of the public cloud is run on. IBM-Z mainframes and Linux One machines are designed with sustainability in mind. So I love this chart here. So this was a study that their consulting team did. They worked with a local Dutch government agency, and they actually converted their 47 x86 blade cloud infrastructure. So think like a classroom full of servers, and they transitioned it to just 2 Linux One servers. So again, that's like me in bulking season standing next to another me in bulking season. That's a mean duo. They probably run a basketball court, but we don't need to talk about that right now, because what those Linux 1 machines did is they significantly reduced the carbon footprint of this local Dutch government agency by over 80%. So this just kind of like really gets me fired up. I love green technology. I think that we need to make bigger and harder and faster pushes to adopting green technologies. And this is a way in which we're seeing our clients do so. By transitioning their traditional x86 blade server environment to Linux 1 or IBM Z machines, they're not only saving money, sure, but they're saving carbon emissions because they're taking up less space. That's less machines to power. That's less geographic space that they're taking up. But they're also leveraging servers and machines that are truly built to last. Whereas an x86 blade server is kind of built to do as best as it can, and then it fizzles out and it breaks, and you order a replacement part. Linux 1 and IBM Z servers are all created to last forever. They've got redundancy systems out the wazoo. Every machine is actually constructed, the individual pieces are brought to Poughkeepsie, New York. They're assembled on site, and our testers and our engineers go crazy on these machines, making sure that by the time their tests are done, these machines are ready for everything. They can withstand earthquakes at 8.0 on the Richter scale. They can survive tornadoes, hurricanes, power outages. They've got so many redundancy systems built into it because they have to. I'm going to get back to that point that I brought up earlier. These machines do this because they have to. They have to stay on. They have to be reliable because they are mission critical applications that are running on these machines. When you, let's just say when you go to pull up Facebook or Instagram or TikTok and it's down, you're going to be a little frustrated, but like whenever you close the app and you move on with your day. If you're trying to pull cash out of an ATM and that system says, sorry, try again later, you're going to be pissed. You made it all the way to the bank. You want your cash now. It's your cash and you can't get it. That's not going to happen because of the reliability of these systems. We're actually up to 8 nines of uptime. So that's 99.999999% uptime. We just added that new 9 recently. We're very excited about it because that means that the average system is just down for a couple of seconds each year. And because of the redundancy systems, there are no impacts to the end user, namely you. So you never experience these downtimes anyhow, creating virtually 100% uptime and reliability, which is just unmatched by any and all other systems in the world. So I'm going to be moving on in just a second here, and we've got a few slides focused on AI on Z, which, as I mentioned, is exploding, and it's all kind of due to latest advancements in technology outside of IBM, but also with our new innovative chip design, our Telum processor in the IBM Z16. We'll talk about that in a second, but I want to break for a second. Do you have any kind of general questions about IBM Z, about mainframes, how they fit into a business ecosystem, what CTOs are thinking about it, how it's kind of moving into the future, anything of that sort? I'd be happy to answer that now. We'll also have some time at the end of the session where I'll stick around, so if you want to ask me questions at that point, feel more than free. All right, moving right along, let's talk about AI on Z. So we've talked earlier about the importance of data in creating good AI. And the industries that are powered by IBM Z mainframes are some of the most data-intensive businesses in the world. When you think of banking, finance, trading, insurance, even into manufacturing and computer design, healthcare, these are industries that take in so much data, and they've been like, hey, we want to do more with this data. How can we do more with this data? And how can we do more with this data in real time? Because that's something, especially in the banking and finance industry, we were hearing all the time. Sure, we can detect fraud after the case, but the fraud has occurred. How do we prevent fraud at the source? So we're going to talk about some amazing new instances in which fraud is being detected, thanks in part to our Telum processor and some of the other latest and greatest technologies in the new IBM Z16. But across these other industries, you see algorithmic trading, wealth management with predictive models, claim education. We're going to dive into some of those in a second, but there's huge value in AI in this industry right now. So let's talk about some of these technology advancements that I've just kind of been like hinting at, dropping little sprinkles along the way. The first and foremost is the Telum processor. And this first of its kind dual chip processor is embedded in every single new IBM Z16 that goes out to our clients. And what this technology does is it allows for real-time AI inferencing, which has never been done before on these machines. So what that real-time AI inferencing means is that in those milliseconds when that transaction is occurring, remember that diagram at the bottom of the screen when you're buying a pair of shoes, if you are fraudulently buying a pair of shoes or someone is buying a pair of shoes with your bank without your permission, In the milliseconds in which that transaction is occurring, the Telum processor can detect if that is fraud and stop the transaction before it is complete. So that is saving you, the user, a big headache with having to like call your bank up and be like, hey, what the hell's going on? Why is my bank frozen? Why do I see this charge for these shoes that I never bought? But it's saving a ton of time for our clients as well because they don't have to run these kind of like batch-based fraud detection jobs that they were largely doing in the past. One of the other kind of latest and greatest on the IBM Z16 as it pertains to cybersecurity is the new quantum cryptographic chip. And that is just like the coolest three words you could ever put in a line together. But what it actually does is it preempts a future in which cyber criminals, bad actors, can get access to quantum computers. I don't want to scare anyone, but right now there's a lot of criminals out there who are just sitting on encrypted data. They have so much encrypted data and they have no way to access it because to break these encryptions with current computing, it would take them decades, hundreds of decades, thousands of years that they just don't have because it's not going to be useful to them. I guess it can be useful to their like great grandkids, but they're not going to waste any time starting those models now. If a bad actor were to get access to a quantum computer, which will be likely, unfortunately, in the next 5 to 10-ish years, they would be able to crack those encryptions, what used to take decades, in a matter of hours or even minutes. But we don't need to be afraid because IBM is seeing this coming. We're a leader in the quantum space, so we're a leader in the quantum cryptography space as well. With the new quantum cryptographic chip in the IBM Z16, your data is now encrypted at that quantum level so that when these cyber criminals get access to quantum computers, your data is still safe. It's still going to be encrypted for decades, tens of decades to come. So there's nothing to really be worried about. So let's talk about some of the use cases, the ways in which our clients are using the new IBM Z16, specifically in finance and banking. So I'm not going to dive into all of them, but I'll touch on a couple of them. One that I love to focus in on is a US state government that realized that the process to determine fraudulent claims was taking up to 40 hours per case. So that meant it was taking one person a full work week to determine if a claim was or was not fraudulent. That is first off, it's a huge waste of taxpayer dollars, but second off, imagine you're that claims officer and you spend a whole week diving into this claim, trying to see if it's true or not, and at the end of the week, it's like, oh, that was a fraudulent claim. It's like, all right, that was a waste of a week, on to the next. Leveraging the IBM Z16 with z/OS, that's the operating system that is primarily used on IBM Z machines, and Watson Machine Learning for z/OS, we're now able to help them detect and process fraudulent claims in under 1 minute per case. That is an insane savings of dollars for taxpayers and time for that poor claims officer who can now do so much more with their day. It's truly staggering the speed at which these processes can be done when they're leveraging the proper technology. In some other industries as well, let's focus in on this medical imagery case. So a health insurer needs to analyze large volumes of medical records, including training computer vision models, while optimizing for energy efficiency. If you've ever tried to run or train a computer vision model, if you tried to do it on your laptop, you knew that you had to have like 6 fans pointing at your laptop and stick it in the freezer because it is insanely energy intensive and your laptop might have felt like it was going to blow up. So what we did was we replaced their x86 server environment with a Linux One machine that reduced their energy consumption by a large percentage. It's a percentage that my legal team will not let me share because then you might be able to figure out who the client is. We're not allowed to share that information. But I assure you, let's think back to the prior chart that we were allowed to share the information in which it accounted for an 80% energy saving. So think on that scale. This insurance agency was able to save a ton of energy efficiency and train their computer vision models that much faster because of IBM Linux One, some great data analytics tools like Onyx and PyTorch, along with that integrated accelerator for AI on chip that I mentioned. Does anyone have any questions about AI on Z before we move forward? Awesome. Well, let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes here, why we're all here. Yes, I'm excited to talk to you about IBM Z. Yes, it's amazing technology and it is innovating at a rapid pace, but there's also an insane demand for IBM Z skills right now. So as we kind of mentioned earlier, good data is needed for good AI, and this isn't AI, but good data also tells a story. So let's walk through these numbers, and then let's tell the story that these numbers are kind of dictating to us. So first and foremost, 60% of mainframe technology specialists are over the age of 50. 71% of IT leaders say their mainframe team is understaffed. 93% say it's moderately or extremely challenging to find mainframe skills. 67% of executives recognize the mainframe's ability to grow and attract new workloads. 91% of companies are expanding their mainframe footprints as a moderate or critical priority. So those are all just numbers, but let's put them all together. And what this story is that mainframe teams are getting a little older there. We've got folks, more than half of folks working in this technology area are over the age of 50. That's mean they're going to think about retirement in the next 10, 15 years. And a big portion of that 60% are already kind of approaching retirement, thinking about retiring in the next 5 years. Currently, most teams are already understaffed. So if you've got people walking out the door, that number is just going to shoot through the roof. And 93% of companies are already saying that it is hard to find people with the relevant skills. So while people are walking out the door, while teams are getting more and more understaffed, they're having more trouble than ever finding people to fill these roles. And while that's all happening, executives are trying to do more on the mainframe. They're trying to attract new workloads, bring them onto the system. They're expanding their mainframe footprints, either buying new machines or investing in new software. They want to do more, but they can't because they can't find people. And the people they do have are retiring without training up the next generation of mainframers. Maybe that's going to be you guys. And while, yes, this is all happening, but I'm not trying to sell you snake oil here. These aren't bad jobs. When we ran a survey back in 2019, we're working on a new survey currently, we found that, students are mostly focused on 5 things when they're trying to land their job. I think it's the same 5 things that most people are looking for in their first job or in their second job or really any job. First and foremost, they want to have a good starting salary. On average, starting roles in mainframe are about $8,000 more per year than in other IT roles. And while this data is about 5 years old now, we're seeing those trends remain consistent, almost at a larger scale. So a bigger gap between entry-level mainframe roles and other IT roles. When you're working, you want to work to live. You don't necessarily want to live to work. 70% of folks working mainframe roles rate their work-life balance at an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10, compared to just 57% in other IT roles. Do you want to make a social impact with your work? Do you want to contribute to open source, social, or community groups with your technical skills? Nearly 70% of folks working mainframe roles feel that they're doing so, that they're able to make a social impact in their job, compared to just 38% in other roles. If you want to work on cutting-edge technology, we talked about the teleprocessor, the quantum cryptographic card. 70% of folks working mainframe jobs agree that they're working on cutting-edge technology, compared to just 57% in other IT roles. And then up there with with salary is going to be job security. It's kind of the toss-up. You want to make money, but you want to keep your job. When you get that job, you want to hold on to it. You don't want to be looking over your shoulder every day, wondering if you're going to be in the next round of layoffs. That's not a concern with mainframe roles. 90% of professionals working mainframe roles agree that the job market for their skill set is growing, and 75% believe that there's a current shortage. That coupled with the information we just reviewed means that when you get that mainframe job, these companies want you to succeed. They want to invest in you, in your training, in your education. They're not going to care if you make a couple of small mistakes along the way, so long as you learn from them and you do better. They want you to succeed, and they want you to work in these roles for 10, 20, 30 years, however long you want to remain with that company, remain in their roles. They want to keep you there, and they want to help you learn from those folks who may be on their way out in the next 10, 15 years, so that there's that knowledge transfer. And because there are folks kind of on their way out, maybe even with 1 foot out the door, that means that there's room for improvement pretty early on, room for career progression, because if the top dog leaves, everyone kind of gets to move up around. So it's a great opportunity for job security, salary, work-life balance, and career progression. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, hey, Lucas, this is phenomenal. This is fantastic. I can't wait to learn more. How do I get the skills that these companies are looking for? I've got just the thing for you. IBM Z Explore is the premier learning platform for leveraging IBM Z skills, or for learning IBM Z skills. It is completely free. We never ask for your credit card. You never have to pay a dime to access this system. And it's completely on your own time as well. So it's whenever you've got maybe half an hour in between classes, or you're on break, or it's a weekend, or it's Sunday and you're procrastinating your schoolwork or studying for an exam, you can dive into IBM Z Explore and learn whenever you are able to. As you get into the platform, you actually get hands-on access in your own sandbox environment connected directly to a mainframe via VS Code. So who here has used VS Code before? Yeah, so you're in a system that you understand, that you've been in already. Hopefully you're comfortable in it. And if you haven't been in there at all, some of these folks in the room can tell you, it's a pretty user-friendly platform. And the great thing about IBM Z Explore is it's designed for anyone of any skill level. Whether you are a philosophy major who wants to see what this whole tech thing is all about, Or if you're a computer science student working on your master's degree or working on a PhD in neural networks, you can still get in there. It's going to be a little easier for you. You're going to be able to get through there a bit faster than the philosophy student. And no shame to philosophy students. You're looking at one right here. But I was able to get through this platform, no problem. And that's how it's laid out throughout these progressive learning paths. You are doing harder work as you advance. So you're building upon the skills from each challenge. As you work your way through, you will learn these technology areas that I've talked about earlier on. You'll learn JCL, the job control language. You'll set up your own mainframe environment. You'll start submitting jobs. You'll learn about Rex and Unix system services. You'll become masters in those fields. After you finish the fundamentals path where you get this hands-on access, you dive into concepts and you pick out kind of some of the interest areas that are more interesting to you to learn about. So you can learn about cybersecurity in mainframe. You can learn about the history of mainframe. You've got a few different options that you can go through. And once you complete the fundamentals section and the concept section, you'll be presented with this beautiful scarlet maroon IBM Z Explorer Concepts badge. And it's not just a pretty looking square that you can post on your LinkedIn and put on your resume. It is industry recognized. When you are applying for these mainframe roles, I mean, I'm not going to put words in our clients' mouths here, but I've heard a number of them say that if they were going to review a resume and they see an IBM Z Explorer badge on there, they're not going to be able to guarantee you any jobs or anything of the sort, but your resume is definitely going to move up the stack because unlike so many of your peers, this badge shows these employers, these companies out there, these massive companies, that you know what a mainframe is and you've had some hands-on access to the system, which is something that very few of your peers can account for. As you continue going through the platform, you unlock the advanced badge, which is a suite of curriculum that really dives into the areas that you learned in the concepts badge. So let's say you really liked Python on the mainframe, which is something you can experience in the concepts badge. In the advanced badge, you can go down code 2, which is a path dedicated deeper into writing Python in a mainframe environment. Let's say you thought like Rex was cool and some of the security features around that technology. In advance, you can go into Rex 2 and dive into those skill sets. Beyond the advanced badge, we've got a whole suite of extended challenges, and these are regularly updated based on what our clients are directly looking for. Just the other day, a client was talking to us about wanting a ZVM challenge, a virtual machine in a Z environment. That's something that they use, and they're really looking to skill up their employees in that field. So we spun together a ZVM challenge. Now you can get on there and you can check out the ZVM challenge and you can learn these skills that are truly in high demand. So it's a great platform for you to dive into. Again, it's completely free. And just, I want to thank you all again for your time today. Thanks for making the time to come out here and listen to us talk. I hope you learned something new. Before I started, I asked a quick question. Who here knows what a mainframe is now? I mean, I've been talking about this for about 30 minutes now, so I'll ask again, quick raise hand. Who here knows what a mainframe is? Awesome. Love seeing all those hands go up. Who here is going to dive into Z Explorer? Who's going to try their hand at learning these hands-on skills? Awesome. Love seeing that. Thank you so much for having me. I'll be sticking around here if you have any questions that I didn't get to throughout the presentation or you didn't really want to raise your hand in front of everyone. Please, by all means, come up here and ask me them. Thank you again.